Hey everyone, good morning here in New York and good evening in Pakistan and India. Welcome to Instagram Live. Today we are going to be talking to Affan Baghpati in Karachi, but before that, we've been getting a lot of news from everyone that has friends and family in South Asia. The news is not good on the COVID front. So all of us from here, send our best wishes. There's not much more that we can do, and there is that frustration also. But hope all of you are well, folks in the artists and arts communities. Here's hoping that we all make it through together, and art kind of strengthens us and sustains us. Okay, so we are in Aicon Contemporary. It's 11 a.m. Eastern Time in New York, and we are opening a show by Affan Baghpati, a Karachi-based visual artist. And has Affan joined us already, Lina?
Not yet.
Okay, so he will be joining us shortly. We have a show of his work called Anatomy of a Horny Heart, which is what we'll be doing a little walkthrough today. This is happening in conjunction with, of course, a show called Contained by Seher Naveed. The two of them are also together through Indus Valley School, where Seher was Affan's professor. And of course, I have been working
we have Affan here.
Affan is here. Hey Affan, how are you?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
How are you?
I can hear you faintly because actually Lina is can see you. I can't really see you, but I was just saying very quickly, Affan, before we roll on to your show, I was saying that our best wishes go out to everyone in Pakistan, in India, and in the South Asian region. Our friends, our family, artists we work with, everyone in the arts community, many of whom are quite ill with COVID right now, as the pandemic is ravaging that region. So our best wishes to everyone there. Hope you, everyone watching today, hope you and yours are well. And welcome to the conversation with Affan Baghpati. The show is called Anatomy of a Horny Heart. So I actually want to start with that right there, Affan. Why is the show called Anatomy of a Horny Heart?
Well, it's open to interpretation. Your guess would be as good as mine. But if you talk about, just the word horny, it sort of connects with, the idea of longing, the idea of belonging, the idea of certain connections that we will further look into and maybe dissect to certain capacity here at the show.
So which work would you like us to, I can actually, Lina, join you at the back of the camera. What work would you like us to start with?
I was really enjoying the pipe showing in your background before with the text, with the wall text, which we could see.
Sure. Why don't we do that? Folks everybody's watching this on their phones, remember, so this is not going to be very as vibrant at home as it is standing here. But yes, go ahead and tell us a little bit about it.
So, like when I was looking at the space, this pipe sort of really had its own presence, especially being red in color. And we were just looking at where to place the wall text, and perhaps this sort of became the margin, the left margin for the text. And I think the text is also pretty interesting. If Lina could perhaps zoom in a little, it also shows those certain jumps of words in text from Urdu to Hindi to English, and certain phrases, certain dialects, certain names of the objects cannot be translated, and that's why Arushi, who's written this text for us, and I sort of sat together and decided like where to place what. And so this is probably sort of brief intro into perhaps a window into the work and the practice at large.
Okay, that's great. So we have obviously shown your work multiple times before this. We have also had you on this Instagram Live show with us before. And one of your signature styles is to juxtapose objects that might be industrially produced, manually produced, etc. So why don't we just straight head towards, maybe the work that we have on the invitation. We have a group of 3 works sitting here together, and maybe we can start
Right.
with these 3.
Right. So these works were perhaps in under fabrication when we had our first conversation on IG Live. If you remember that, the head of the Louis IV,
Yes.
who's an Austrian music composer, and if you listen to any of his compositions, you'd know that you're familiar with them, you've heard them before. And then obviously, the Ken doll inevitably becomes a part of this work, which here I've used the legs of these dolls. And then the central body, which is a vessel as a South Asian object. I'm sort of unable to identify why this vessel was used, but it is a vessel, and I'm sure maybe it was part of a pandan or certain container, larger sort of a vessel where something would have been, it would have served a purpose.
Where
But
did you
now it's
where
sort
did
of
you find the head?
the head. This was a store. I just randomly walked into a store. It was like a flea market store, but it was more like a he was offering a lot of sort of Christian figurines and a lot of crosses that were discarded, and so this person sort of collects them. And the fun part is that he every few months he sends me images of what he has. So it's almost sort of building up this relationship with people who are collecting these objects, and they're making sales, and they're sort of also these people are sort of reservoirs of information when it comes to what figurine comes from where, and
Do you know
where it
what
was
it may
manufactured,
be made
maybe.
of?
Yeah.
What are these heads? What is it made of? Do you know?
Okay, so the first head which I bought was porcelain. It was white porcelain. But when I looked it up, it also had like a heavy amount of resin. So it was something between, it was a polymer clay which was mixed with resin and some sort of fiber. But then because I just had one and I wanted to use that in a series of works, so I recasted them. And this cast is in polymer resin mixed with chalk and a few other chemicals, because the fun part with brass is that if it falls, it doesn't break. Max, like there might be a little bit of dent which could be fixed, but then apart from that, there's nothing damaging which happens if an object of brass falls. But if porcelain falls, it cracks. So, I was sitting with my father, and he got me this formula where, this head, if it falls, it won't break. It won't even dent. So it's a mixture of couple of things, powders, and the basic formula for this would be a polymer resin
Yeah, the guy
mixed with
looks
a
very
few things.
determined. It doesn't look like it's going to break even if it falls. He has a
Yeah,
look of
yeah,
determination.
yeah.
Okay,
So the
so
first
shall
vessel,
we?
yeah.
So these are 3 heads, and you basically found one in the flea market, and then you reproduced it in polymer resin. So, which is the original? Is this the original one, and these reproductions, or is this the original and those 2 reproductions?
The original one is with me. Let me see. It might be
Oh,
here.
yeah,
Oh,
sure. Why don't you show it to us? Show it to everyone on the show.
here it is.
And that you
Is the
said
light
was
okay
porcelain.
for this to be seen? Yeah.
So you took a negative of it, and then um, additional
Yes,
color.
I made a mold of it, and then I took out a few casts, and then in the last cast, I think the mold, the clay sort of flew all over, and I was like that I don't want to do this anymore, so I kept the mold aside. I actually threw the mold. So I have like these heads from that.
Great. Great. So this is maybe we should just move on to the next object, or any if you have anything in mind where there is a linkage. But this is
Yes. So Prajol, if we go back to the first figure which we just saw, um,
sure.
that has a small bezel in which there's a fetus, right? So it almost
Yes.
sort of suggests the idea of a man being pregnant
Yes.
or holding a baby inside or outside or however. And then so this baby is another repeated in the third part of the sculpture, which where the man is popping out the baby. No, the one with crystals and Swarovskis. Yeah, so here's what the man is sort of popping out the baby with all its glamour and things which are around him. And then the same baby is recasted in brass on the right, on the
So this
tiny
explains the look of determination on the guy's face.
call it determination. Um, and then here it's a brass cast, and on top of it is a fragment of a coal container, which is a reoccurring symbol in many of my works.
And so this the little this object, I'm going to just point at it. Did you use fretwork to make it like you had done on our IG Live show, or is this something that came like this?
No, no. So this is exactly how a coal container's applicator's top is like. So I just took a ready-made applicator. I chopped off the stick on it, and I soldered it here.
I see.
Also, it sort of balances in a way where, the how the baby is usually in the womb in a certain position where the head is facing downwards and the rest of the part of the fetus is sort of levitating within the womb.
Got it. Got it. And maybe we can stay with this theme of perforations and applicator handles. I think, and also it's the work right next door to the ones that we were seeing. So tell us about this one.
So this is the Venus, the famous sculpture, which is popular. But this actually is a souvenir that you'll find if you're visiting the city, and and I was surprised to see it here in Karachi, at a flea market, and then the on top of it is a horizontally placed fragment of a coal container, which is surma dani. And on top of it, I have again kept a claw with a crystal, with a yellow crystal. And on top of that, on top of all of this is this, yeah, that's the stone. On top of it is this structure, which sort of vaguely is familiar with a Turkish lantern, but I am unable to find its origin and understand where it's coming from. But I just felt that uh, it sort of forms this sort of articulate connection with the form when the head was removed, and I might have this headline somewhere too. I don't remember where.
And this
Um,
also kind of could vaguely look like there's a syringe. You're injecting this headless Venus, who was
mhm.
armless in any case, even before you met her, and then you made her headless also. You're injecting her with something.
Never thought of that, but if you say so, sure. Uh,
Okay, all right,
This
fair enough.
reminds me of how a lot of times, the process that I do looks very deconstructive in a way that I'm almost slaughtering things or like chopping off things. But then even when I'm doing that sort of part A and part B separation, I make sure that I use the finest plate so that very little material is sort of lost, and each angle that I'm cutting could be used in certain way. By the
Okay.
way, Amila has done such a lovely job with the dimensions of the racks and how they're placed. They look flawless.
Oh yeah, yeah. Amalia also, her work is wonderful, and she also took great pleasure doing it. But let's get on to this: the bottle opener and the I think
Hmm.
the actual original sculpture is actually called the pisser, and then on top of that the sort of handle from applicator. So what is? Tell us about this one.
It's interesting how souvenirs sort of travel around the world, and they have an itinerary of their own. They're made in certain part of the world, and then they're transmitted from one station to the other, and then they sort of resonates for some time at a shop's rack, and then they travel with the person who buys them to their country and their homeland. So this is again a souvenir and it also, I'm sure it says Brussels towards the handle of it, where it belongs to. It's a pissing boy, and I think there's a variety of titles for this one, and I mean, there are various myths about them that a boy was lost and his father, when found, gifted this sculpture to the city, and again, it's sort of traveled various cities, various continents, and when it came to Karachi, it was sort of lying, and I because it had some text saying Brussels, and I found this another fragment of a kohl container which said Pakistan. So I thought that it'd be sort of a nice contrast between Urdu and English, and how these two language sort of creates a form of in their words, and not just how the words are being pronounced or the words are being written, but also how the letters are being formed within this one work.
Sure, sure. I'll keep us moving only because we will run out of time. But here I think is a work that I'd like to hear what you have to say about.
So, like if we look at a variety of objects around us, which are maybe made for both the genders or maybe just made for men, but they follow contours of the female body. And here in this work, this is obviously the male genitalia, and the object of a surma dani is, I believe it's a very it's highly feminine in certain ways. It represents femininity for me at least. So this is almost like an antithesis of how things are developed by the community, by the society for mass use. So this is a male organ or a male representation for a female object, for an object which will be consumed by women. Um, and the fun part is that I don't know any woman who would like to use a surmadani like this. But just sort of a notional idea to put out there.
So there are two objects here that have been,
Hmm.
or more than two objects that have been joined. So this is the surmadani, right? Right here.
Uh,
The
actually, um, actually, the two fragments, one which is the genitalia, and other is the shank of the penis. They both were parts of jewelry, Afghan jewelry, which I have been collecting for some time. And on top of it is a fragment of a surmadani. So they're basically three objects,
three
which
objects.
are sort of
And so,
connected here.
what are these made of,
And then the
respectively?
bearing,
Are they all
obviously, sort of,
brass?
in fact, yeah.
Are they all made of brass?
So the top fragment, which is in slightly towards the golden color, that is one of the purest forms. No, they're alloys of brass and copper. The top part, which is a fragment of the surmadani, which also says Pakistan, is one of the purest forms of brass. And then the rest of the body of the work is in brass and copper alloy.
Okay, all right. This, I think, is a spectacular
Am I,
work.
am
I
I,
find
am
it
I?
really funny, and I was just saying, I find this work to have a great sense of humor. And on the sense of humor thing, let's go on to what is the largest and perhaps the most different work. If we were playing odd man out in this assembly of works, this work would be the odd man out. So tell us what's going on here.
Affan, can you hear us?
Prajal, I'm sorry, I'm unable to hear you. Are the signals all right your side, or is there a glitch from my end?
I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's not important. Just tell us about
Yes,
this
but
work.
your voice is breaking. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah. Talk about Chashme Baddu.
Hello?
You want to bring this down? Can you talk about Chashme Baddu? Tell us about it.
Oh, he's disconnected and he's left.
Okay.
Sorry,
Are
guys.
Are we still?
We are still here. We have just lost connection with Affan first.
So we may. So, folks, while we wait for that connection to come through, those of you that didn't hear, I was basically asking Affan about this work that is behind me, which is a work that is quite unusual when compared with the rest of the show. There is no element of assemblage, there is no element of melding multiple objects from different places. Instead, it is just a calligraphic writing piece. Is he back?
Affan is back. Can you hear us?
Affan, welcome back. Can you see me and hear me now?
Doesn't seem
Sounds
so.
like you still can't hear.
Yeah. Can you hear us, Affan?
Can you hear us?
It seems we're having some issues with connecting with Affan.
Affan, do you want to just reconnect?
I can hear you, but your voice is constantly breaking. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can hear you. And I was just starting to talk about this work in the sense how this work is quite unique. This work is unlike any of the other works in the show. Do you want to talk about Chashme Baddu? Do you think he heard that? Maybe not. Okay. So maybe we'll come back to Chashme Baddu, which is something I really want him to talk about. But in the meanwhile,
Am I audible?
Let's start going through the rest of the show. Is he back again?
Yes.
Affan, hi, can you hear me? I think let's maybe go to the animal works.
Okay. Affan has disconnected again.
Okay. So we have a set of 3 animal works here, and this obviously is a cat, where he has again taken an industrially produced object with perhaps some history, and has then used his intervention to sort of cut it open. We think Affan is joining us very shortly. There he is. All right. Affan, can you hear us now? Are you? It's still not. Well, we'll just keep going piece by piece. But when, as and when we hear you, we'll go back to Chashme Baddu. Can you hear
me?
Yep, we
I can hear you now. I'm so sorry. I mean, it's been terrible. It usually is pretty good in working the internet, but I don't know what happened just now.
That's okay. So listen, we wanted to talk about Chashme Baddu, which is, I think, in some sense, a very unique work in the show. It does not conform to the other works. So tell us about it.
You know, like many of the other works sort of slightly touches upon the idea of the amuletic concerns that are prevalent in South Asia, in Pakistan primarily. And I'm sure, like, you must have heard the term mashallah that you would say when you want to compliment somebody, but you also are intending the evil eye to sort of keep away. And so this, in certain capacity, is a synonym of mashallah, which is chashme badur, which is an Urdu word which means that may the evil eye be away from whoever you're saying it to. So chasham literally means the eye, and bad means bad, and dur means away. Uh, so, so it is a word which, like many other objects within the show, which isn't part of our daily conversations anymore. How objects transform from material culture, vocabulary also changes, and language sort of constantly develops, where uh, some of the phrases that were used, let's say, during the time of partition, where most of the objects belong to, some words and some sort of dialects have also been discarded. And this is one of that words which was pretty prevalent in daily use, but it's not anymore. So also when you enter the show, this is perhaps one of the first things that you see because of its magnitude, and it's right there in the front on the right. And so it's sort of a stance on, like, you come, you say this, I mean, you read this, meaning you say this, and then you go through the rest of the works.
Right. And so we have one section, so we will peel ourselves away from the book. We have one section that we have started to show, and these are basically some animal works, which while you were connecting, we showed already. So let's start instead with two other works and tell us about it. In fact, it may be the case that you had done some of this fretwork while we were on the IG Live last time. So tell us about these two works.
So this is basically a copper soap dish. Soap dish, again, having these three sort of portions. One is the base. Second is the central plate, which has these perforated surfaces so that your soap remains dry. And then the third part is the lid. Now, if we look at, the amount of craftsmanship that has gone into a single, let's call it sabundani, because that's what we call it. A soap dish is a sabundani. I mean, the amount of craftsmanship and intricacy that has gone into this sabundani is flawless. I mean, I don't know how many hours a craftsman would have spent doing all of this repousse work on it. And then it was part of a mundane use. Now, also because, like, we now tend to, we're more inclined towards objects that are easy to purchase, objects that are easy to discard, mostly plastic. So this is where, if I was in 1950s, I would have been using every day as whenever I would wash hands. I mean, this was the soap dish. So what I did here was that, there were these Bharatnatyam dancers that were that I sawed out from the base of the soap dish, and then I repositioned them. So again, this object sort of becomes a stencil of a memory, stencil of a shared history. And when I say shared, it also sort of connects to India and to Bangladesh, where you will find similar objects, because if a sabundani was made in Lahore, then it was being transmitted to all other parts. If there was a sarata, like this is the sarata, the betel nut cracker, was being manufactured in Jamnagar, then this betel nut cracker was being transported to all the other parts of the South Asia, mostly the South Indian continent, the India and Pakistan and Bangladesh. So, like many, like how language has transformed, our material culture has, and this was, I mean, one of the finest, some of the finest objects from our history, which I have sort of tried to preserve here.
Right. We are really running out of time. In fact, we are out of time already. But please also talk a little bit about these animal works?
Yeah. So animals have always been part of my work from the very beginning, but this is sort of a new approach where I'm uh, splicing the objects. I mean, I see them as objects into two, and this is what I was talking about, where I felt initially that I was deconstructive or destructive, and so each angle that this object was thought out was sort of very carefully thought out before I did it, and um, this is a candle clipper, and I'm assuming, I don't know if it has a tag, but mostly things like these are coming from England, and they do have a little tag saying made in England. And then this is a fragment of a Dalmatian dog here. So again, sort of, two different kind of aesthetics, two different kind of things belonging to different cultures sort of coming together and sort of making this point of negotiation where it becomes an object for the viewer from an object. And similarly, this sort of cut into two, yet it's sort of fastened with this bracer. In fact, this is one of the recent most works where I've riveted this bracer of the copper sheet onto this figurine. And this is a cat which you will find almost in many regions, because it's so universal in its form, in its nature.
Okay. So, despite a lot of immediate challenges of connectivity and technology, and the larger challenge of what's going on with the COVID pandemic in the world, we want to say to everyone who is with us today that we think art is affirmative, art nourishes, art supports humanity through tough times, and we think that the best thing we can do is to continue with our work in art, our artists making it, us showing it, and trying to sort of bring it all to you. So thank you, Affan, for joining us. Thanks everyone who joined us also. Next week, same time, we have Ellie Clark from the Armory Show, which is going to be one of the first big shows that they have scheduled, and it's going to happen in person in September in New York. We will be participating. So I'll be talking to Ellie Clark from the Armory Show next time, and the Affan Baghpati show on Aicon Contemporary runs through the 29th of May. So if you are in the New York area, if you're going to be here, please come and visit. Although you see me unmasked right now, we are following all protocols. We are masking ourselves when when we are within proximity of each other. We are also kind of spacing out, running the openings for longer so that folks can come in smaller batches. So we are at 35 Great Jones Street. I hope to see you between now and when the show ends on the 29th of May. Thanks everyone for joining. Affan, thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much, Projol, and thank you, Lena, for this walkthrough. I'm looking forward.
Lena, you want me to hold the camera and you want to say a quick hello to everyone?
Hi everyone, good to see you.
So Lena, this is the girl who I've been bothering quite a lot for installations of the works. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thanks everyone.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, bye.
Bye.